Hey everybody, welcome back to the Plays and Fades YouTube channel. I am your co-host, Gordo Gambles, joined here by this beauty of a man. Kiro, how are we doing today, my friend?
We're doing pretty good. We're feeling good coming off of last week. We made some great predictions. We did very well on our bets. I mean, last week was a good weekend for us in the UFC, coming off a pretty strong one of predictions in UFC 264, but that Makhachev-Moises fight night was a good night for us.
Yeah, man, 91 predictions, plus 4 units in bets, some killer DraftKings and FanDuel lineups. It was just a great day overall. We're coming back with a huge card this week. If you guys follow me on Twitter, you'll know that I've got my wisdom teeth out. I may be sore, but there's nothing more important than breaking down fights for you guys. Right? So let's get right into it. Let's make some money. All right, there's some absolute bangers on this card. I'm really excited. Dillashaw's back. Excited to see how he looks. No drugs this time, no EPO.
And I remember the last time that this fight got booked and canceled at the last minute. I mean, I remember how bummed you were after that. You were incredibly bummed after that. You were like, oh man, this weekend of fights, so much worse now that the Sandhagen Dillashaw fight's off. You were bummed, and from that day, you were looking forward to when they were going to rebook that one. So definitely an exciting main event we have.
Yep, great main event. And you know what? Let's get right into it. Let's not waste any more time. The first fight I really want to target this week is the fight between Soriano and Brendan Allen. Punaheli Soriano is this absolute beast. He's got this insane knockout power that we haven't seen before. He's facing a guy in Brendan Allen. The line has shown that they're very even. Definitely has some holes that Punaheli may be able to exploit. One of these fights where both fighters have their own path to victories. I'm really liking this line we're getting at 8.2K or at 8,000 for Allen. You really have nowhere to go wrong here. We've seen how hittable Allen's been recently with his knockout to Sean Strickland, and Punaheli has power that no one else has that I've seen. Like, maybe not no one. He's got insane power that's almost unmatched in the division. If Allen wants to keep his questionable striking defense there, I think Punaheli will be able to shut his lights out. On the other hand, we've seen how dangerous Brendan Allen has been on the ground. Punaheli wants to be just like Carl Robertson and try to go for a leg lock. You know how that's going to end. Allen is insanely talented in BJ. Now, where do I lean? I'm going to lean Punaheli here. 8.2K, great knockout upside. If he touches that chin of Allen, I think he's going out. Knockdown potential. He's got decent wrestling chops, even though I hope he doesn't go there. I just think he pours on the pressure and clips Allen and takes him out of there.
Yeah, fantastic. I mean, what you're looking for in DFS a lot of the time with value is those even fighters, right? They're right in the middle of the salary range, but you have big upside on both sides. You could definitely get that knockout and score a lot of points for you at a pretty low salary relative to his ceiling.
Yeah, and it's just that power is something that Allen hasn't done well with recently, and with that questionable striking defense, it's very, very live to have a really high ceiling on his 8.2K price tag.
Yeah, 100%. That was the first fight of the night that we're really going to target, but we got a second one that we love this week. So what is that?
Yeah, man, this Yanez Costa fight is an absolute banger as well. A fight that originated on Twitter. Both fighters have insane knockout potential. If you look at their fight times, Costa only has like 12 minutes of fight times over his 7 fights he's got. So he's a very action-packed fighter, and he's facing guy Yanez, who averages 94 DraftKings points. He's one of these guys who's so talented, and Yanez has a bright future ahead of him. But their clash of styles makes it so that we're likely going to see a finish here. Costa blitzes out early. He's very powerful, explosive out the gate. But when he does that, he bursts forward and leaves himself open to be hit. So at Yanez, $9,000 price tag on DraftKings, he's going to be able to exploit the gaps he leaves, the opening that Costa leaves when he explodes forward, because of how pinpoint accurate he is. Adrian Yanez is an absolute beast and technical striker that will be able to find the chin of Costa. I think that both these fighters have their own path to victory, either Costa early or Yanez late, and it's one of those things where they're both going to score great. It's going to be a ton of volume. It's my prediction for fight of the night, and I want to have one of them in my lineup.
All right, two guys we see with a lot of upside there in the first two picks for DFS, but who's maybe an underdog that we're liking this week that we can get some points with a very low salary?
Yeah, man, it's hard to ignore Darren Elkins at 7.6K on DraftKings. I mean, he's been in the UFC since 2010, has that loss against Oliveira all the way back then. This man's been around forever, and he's been in some wars. What I like about Darren Elkins is, even though he went on this 4-fight losing streak, his last time out, he looked like the old self again. It's hard to bounce back after 4 losses. pro, but he was losing to top level competition. I think Elkins is definitely really alive here. He puts out so much volume. He's got some great wrestling chops, great control time, but he's facing a guy in Derek Minner who has a lethal squeeze. Just ask TJ Laramie in that game.
Yeah, very true.
It's one of those spots where Elkins can out wrestle him. I think he has the path to victory, but I wouldn't count out a submission from Minner. So it's a cheaper play for a reason. But if you look at all the output Elkins has, all the damage he is able to absorb, I don't think Minner's finishing Elkins unless he gets a lucky submission. One of these things where Darren Elkins is so live. He's going to get those takedowns. He's going to get those certificates. He's going to get that control time, and they're just going to rack up. And at 7.6K, he's able to secure the win as well. He's definitely to be in the Elkins.
Definitely some great value there on that fight.
Now, coming off a pay down option for Elkins here, who's our favorite pay up option of the week?
One of the guys that we think is going to be worth his value paying up to is Julio Arce. I mean, his opponent Ewell, he's a stand-up guy, right? He's going to stay on his feet, and we've seen Arce piece people apart with his kickboxing, with his elite level stand-up. Ewell's not a guy that's going to go for those level changes. He's not a guy that's gonna go for that takedown, try to get on the ground, and that leaves the opportunity for Arce to pick him apart on his feet. So that's something that we're looking to see. He is coming off of a layoff, and that is somewhat of a concern. But if he doesn't look like he has too much rust coming off of his time away from fighting, then we definitely see him having value against Ewell here. He is more expensive at 9.1K as a salary, but we think he's going to be worth that. So if you are looking for a pay up option that you're a bit more sure about, that's one that we really like this week.
Yeah, and he's stepping down in competition. I mean, he has wins over Dan Ige and a bunch of better guys in the division. And where Ewell has a lot of hype behind him, he's definitely not to the level of the competition. He also has the wrestling chops to take down Ewell if he has to, if he's not feeling comfortable. But I think all around that this is Arce's fight.
Yeah, definitely. So we see value even at that 9.1K price tag, especially if you take an underdog and have the room in your salary. All right, Arce, a great GPP option, but moving right along into one of our favorite cash options of the night. Who is it?
I'm loving Ian Hines at his 8.5K price tag this week. I mean, he's definitely taken a step down in competition, and we've seen Imavov struggle to have any fight IQ at all, especially in that Phil Hall fight. So I think Ian Hines is really his fight to win as well. He's a much better fighter all around. He's got the wrestling chops. I think he's got some good striking, some improved striking as well. And Imavov has been very hittable in the past. So if he's able to accumulate those strikes, those takedowns, that control time, it's his fight to win. And Ian Hines is hungry, coming off of a fight versus Gastelum where he did pretty well in. It's definitely a step down, and it's one where he is back up against the wall and he wants to show that he is the fighter that everyone thought he was. I think Hines wins his fight all day. He's one of my biggest bets of the week, and he's someone I'm also going to lock in a lot of my
nice secure pick that we're pretty confident in. So great for some of your cash lineups if you're trying to have some safer plays.
Now, we've covered a lot of great fights in this card, but there's one that stands out. The main event is an absolute banger this week. Do we want to have any ownership on this main event?
This main event is obviously a super exciting one. It means a lot in this division, and it's one that we're really excited to watch. We think it's going to be a really entertaining fight. But in terms of DraftKings value here, I mean, there's a big disparity in the salaries between these two guys, right? We have Sandhagen at 8,800, and then we have Dillashaw down at 7,400, right? That's a pretty big disparity in terms of salary, even though pretty recently, just a few short years ago, Dillashaw was considered one of the best 135ers of all time. He was one of the best fighters in the UFC. Recently, Sandhagen has been fighting a lot of maybe lower level competition. He has a loss to Aljamain Sterling, and Dillashaw clearly has a path to victory here on the ground, right? If he goes for those takedowns, he could definitely get this victory. So is it probable that Sandhagen wins? Yes, that is true, but there's a lot of hype around him, and maybe this big of a gap in salaries isn't necessarily warranted. Dillashaw definitely has the ability to win this fight, and at a very low salary at 7,400, he's awesome in some of your GPP lineups. I mean, if he takes this fight to the ground and he ends up winning it, he's going to be huge for hitting optimal in any of your GPP lineups because of his incredibly low salary. Even though Sandhagen is the safer pick, at the 8,800 price tag, there's not as much value on that side of this fight. So in this main event, the ownership we like, especially in GPP, is on the Dillashaw side.
Yeah, man, and I wouldn't count him out. I mean, I think that it's a very even fight. Like Dillashaw, like you said, was considered one of the best 135ers, and yes, he got starches last time out, but how much did the EPOs affect? So many question marks going on, but he looks hungry, he looks ready to win, he's got the experience, he's got that speed that no one else has seen, he's got that power, he's got that path to victory on the ground. He's just an overall great, well-rounded fighter, and I'm excited to see how this fight plays out. I think that if you took this fight 2 years ago, Dillashaw will be minus 500, so it just depends on what version of him we got.
Yeah.
That 7,400, I mean, when you go wrong, it's a great option, a great underdog option we're liking for the week. And yeah, let's hope it cashes for us.
Yeah, 100%. A lot of hype behind Sandhagen these days, but Dillashaw is still a killer out there.
That rounds out our DraftKings picks for the week. We got a few dogs, a few favorites, and 2 amazing fights you really want to target. If you're looking to pay up, I don't mind having Kyler Phillips up there. He will pull up a lot of volume. I don't mind Albita as an underdog option as well. It's one of those cards where there's a lot of fights where you don't know. Like the Williams fight, I think he could finish as well, but it's a risk. So I'm going to stick to the fights I expect to finish in terms of the Soriano Allen fight, Costa Ennis fight, the Dillashaw Sandhagen fight. All 3 fights I really expect to finish. I'm going to try to build myself a very beautiful lineup. So thank you everyone for listening. I hope you all enjoyed the video. You know where to find us on our Twitter, on our Instagram. DMs are open anytime. So thank you guys for listening. And yeah, let's make some money.